This time of year, all eyes are on the quarterbacks and the wide receivers. And the Tennessee Titans have a significant wide receiver race on their hands this summer, where the depth behind wide receiver one Calvin Ridley is all varying degrees of question marks. But who is actually going to make the team? Let's break down all 13 receivers on the depth chart into 4 buckets. Bucket number 1, locks to make the Titans roster. I've got 4 guys here, and it might not be the 4 that you think. If you're part of the Tennessee faithful, you know just how many years the Titans have shaved off your life with the emotional roller coaster of sports. Or maybe the roller coaster of life is messing with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals. The new year is a blank space for you to write a new story. BetterHelp makes it easier to get started. They are our incredible sponsor for this video. Regardless, if you have a clinical mental health issue like depression or anxiety, or if you're just a human going through a hard time, therapy can give you the tools you need to approach your life in a very different way. That's where our sponsor, BetterHelp, comes into play. BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy more affordable and more accessible. And this is an important mission because finding a therapist can be really hard, especially when you're limited to the options in your area. Easily switch therapists anytime at no extra cost if it's not the right fit. BetterHelp's platform makes finding a therapist easier because it's online and remote. BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist in as little as a few days. Plus, with our link, you get 10% off your first month. Start fresh any day of the year with BetterHelp. Click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/ATOZsports and get 10% off your first month of therapy with BetterHelp. Calvin Ridley, of course, then Van Jefferson, then a pair of rookies, Chimere Dike and Alec Iamaner. Now, depending on who you ask, different people will give you different answers as to how many true locks there are at receiver so far. 5 is probably the consensus opinion at this point, but I think it's technically 4 right now. 2 veterans, 2 rookies. Ridley is obvious and needs no explanation beyond pointing out that if he goes down early in the season, God forbid, this receiver room could be in some big trouble. So hopefully we don't have to cover that. And then there's Van Jefferson, who I have done a total 180 on since getting to see him in person this spring. Based on his 2024 tape at Pittsburgh and an expendable 1-year contract, I didn't think he was a lock. But after seeing him amongst the other receivers in practice, it's very clear to me that he is one as a role player, but a lock. I think he's making the team for sure. Now, does that mean he'll actually be good on Sundays? No, but I don't think there's a path to him failing to make the team. And then there's the 4th round rookies who would have to go to extraordinary lengths to be cut. Basically, you have to be like Des Fitzpatrick was in 2021, unambiguously bad and competing for a spot in a more crowded wide receiver room. Through a couple of practices, it's clear that Dike and Iamaner don't meet either of those criteria, so they're going to be on the team. The next bucket is likely to make the Titans roster, and the only guy I have here is Tyler Lockett. Now, most folks probably include Lockett as their 4th or 5th lock to make the team. And while I do not, let me be clear, I'd be surprised if he doesn't make the final cut. Very surprised. But the reason he's not a lock at this point is that I can technically see a path to him not making the team. Now, at this point of his career, Lockett is a slot-only player. I believe the plan, which is going accordingly so far from what I've seen and heard, is for Chimere Dike to play a lot as the Titans' big slot. I think he's going to be their primary option eventually. And if that's the case, I think a competition between Restrepo and Lockett could develop for the Titans' other slot-only guy. You can't just keep a team full of slots. And if Restrepo were to establish himself as a must-keep NFL-caliber receiver in training camp, well, there's your path. I know the natural reaction to that is probably still an eye roll because this is Tyler Lockett we're talking about. He's been a fixture of the league for a long time. He's a reliable veteran, but he was signed to a very minimal deal late in the offseason process. There's a reason for that. Whenever I see somebody that is a fixture of a franchise like Tyler Lockett has been for the better part of a decade in Seattle, sent packing without really any concern by the team or the fan base, typically tends to tell me it's over. They're done. He's a declining player. Now, I'm not hoping for this in Tyler Lockett or for the Titans, but I think that's a reasonable read. And I think he feels more like a lock because of his name right now, more so than the actual reality on paper. So we'll see how he looks in August. Next bucket, toss-ups to make the Titans roster. Bryce Oliver, Xavier Restrepo, and James Prochet. A surprising number of people seem to think that Xavier Restrepo is a lock to make this team. And I have no idea where that's coming from because it's not from his coaches or his draft status or anything that's been done on the practice field so far or from the media. listen, I'm as high on his chances as anybody is in local media that I know of. And even I think it's just slightly better than a 50-50 shot that he has. In reality, he's competing with Bryce Oliver and James Prochet for 1 or 2 remaining spots on this depth chart. Carving out a role for himself as a returner or some other position somehow on special teams would go a very long way in him making a case. So we'll see with Restrepo. Oliver is the one of these 3 that I'm the most confident in making the team. I've got faith in his ability after seeing him in limited capacity last year. He played some sneaky nice football for the Titans, albeit in some meaningless moments. If he takes another step at all this summer, I think he makes the team. And Prochet is in the discussion because of his ability as your special teams ace. For him to miss out on the team, folks ahead of him are going to need to establish themselves as viable special teams options, particularly in the run game. And the next bucket, long shots to make the Titans roster. Colton Dowell, Mason Kinsey, Treylon Burks, Jaquan Jackson, and TJ Sheffield. Finally, these are the players who don't stand much of a chance to make the team at all. No surprises, really. The one thing I will point out is that if you had told me one of these guys surprises us this summer and inserts themselves into the conversation, I would bet on it being Colton Dowell. Titans fans don't think anything of him because, since he was drafted in the 7th round a couple years ago, he's been largely out of sight and out of mind. But he's back healthy now and getting somewhat significant run in OTAs so far. If he becomes a stud special teams option, he could suddenly feel harder to cut. For A to Z Sports Nashville, I'm Houston Freeze.